Folks, it's Pastor Rick, your Utah wine pastor, and today I've got a memorable meal post that I'd like to share with you. And I think one of the real true joys for honest to goodness wine lovers is the experience of sitting down to an honestly memorable meal where the wine and food complement each other so well that the whole experience becomes greater than the sum of its parts. And I've had two of those experiences recently that have been anxious to share with you. So for Christmas dinner this year, my son Matt came over and we decided to do something special for his birthday dinner. He's a Christmas Eve baby. And so I tried my hand at a rack of lamb that I prepared with a kind of a garlic herb rub. And I would have liked to encrusted it with fresh breadcrumbs, but since Bonnie is trying to go gluten-free, I kind of had to go a different route. But I found a gluten-free coating mix that I've used for pork chops, excuse me, and decided to give that a try. The good news is that it worked great. We really enjoyed it. For Christmas dinner, we started with a spinach salad, and as sides to the lamb, I did a kind of an herb roasted potatoes and some garlicky green beans. And maybe it was because I slightly undercooked the rack of lamb. The real star of the show was a 2016 Chateau Bernadotte Bordeaux from the Haut Medoc in France that ended up being the real star of the show. It turned out that wine was rich and dense. It had aged well. The tannins were present, but not overpowering. And I think this wine could have aged longer. And as with most Bordeaux, this particular wine was a blend of grapes. And because of the intensity of the fruit in this thing, I suspect that it's mostly Cabernet Sauvignon. And of course, while no one will confuse Chateau Bernadotte with wine from the famous classified gross of Bordeaux, at under $22 a bottle, this Chateau Bernadotte is a terrific value, especially when you consider the quality. And so I just would encourage you to give it a try. Don't be afraid to pair this wine with a real hearty meal. I think it would do well with stews or roasts and steaks for sure. But I'd really like to try this wine again with a rich stroganoff, where the structure and concentration of the wine would stand up well to the rich sauce and the earthiness of mushrooms that you use in a good stroganoff. Chateau Bernadotte is available at the Big Wine Store on 300 West in Salt Lake City, and I would say it's definitely worth a try. The second memorable meal that I've had recently was at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse in Salt Lake City. Bonnie and I were meeting some friends there whom we hadn't seen in quite a while, so it was a special occasion for us. And to be honest, the prices at Ruth's Chris are high. And for that reason alone, it's always a special occasion. And for us at least, it's at best a once or twice a year destination. But one really nice thing about Ruth's Chris is that they have a very reasonable corkage policy. They only charge $10 a bottle when you bring something in. And it's kind of been my experience that if you make nice with your server and you bring a nice bottle of wine, they'll very often waive the corkage fee. And so we did both. Our server, Marcus, was a class act, and the 2018 Guigal Cote Rotie that I brought more than qualified as a nice bottle of wine. We'll get to those tasting notes in just a minute. We got to the restaurant a little early. I'm sort of fussy that way, and Bonnie and I enjoyed a glass of La Marca Prosecco while we waited for our friends. Now, unlike a lot of eating establishments in Utah, the folks at Ruth's Chris know their wine and how to serve it. The Prosecco was crisp and clean as a starter, and it just was a great way to whet our appetite. And it was also not lost on me how it was a generous pour. We bought this wine by the glass, and Ruth's Chris served it in an elegant champagne-style flute. And so we were just off to a really nice start. So our friends arrived, and after looking at the menu for a while, we all decided it was a red meat kind of night. I mean, why else would you go to Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, right? We all ordered some variation of their primetime dinner menu. And so for $78, and I know that's a lot of money, I had the ribeye steak, some au gratin potatoes, a Caesar salad, and their flourless chocolate cake for dessert. We added a side of cremini mushrooms for the table, and boy, the feast began. And at Ruth's Chris, as you would expect, the serving team was super attentive, and as far as I could tell, everything for everybody at the table was cooked well and presented just excellently. And then there was the wine. Wow. Guigal is one of the stars of the Rhone wine region in France. Their single vineyard Hermitages and Cote Roties sell for hundreds of dollars per bottle. And while I brought was only their regular Brune et Blonde bottling, they call it. But oh my goodness. At only 6 years old, this wine was very, very useful. And if I'm honest, maybe it was still a bit too young to drink. There's no question in my mind that it will continue to age beautifully for years. And while it might have been a tad young, the color was already really deep, deep purple. And right out of the bottle, the aromas were just compelling. I mean, it was a treat just to breathe its air, which Bonnie and I did for several minutes before even taking a sip. And while I'm not good at picking up individual fruit flavors in wines, this one was a really rich and full mix of dark red fruit. There was also a touch of leather on the nose that I could pick up. And on the finish, there was this little hint of mocha coffee. It really was excellent. Now, Hermitage and Cote Rotie come from the north end of the Rhone Valley, where Syrah grapes typically dominate. And typically what this means is that the more Syrah there is in the blend, the higher the quality, and consequently the higher the price. This wine is 96% Syrah, with just 4% Viognier added in, no Grenache at all. And I would tell you that this wine is beautiful. Despite its youth, the tannins were well balanced and not overpowering at all. But there's still plenty of tannin left there to assure future aging potential. And at 14% alcohol, this wine didn't taste the least bit hot or alcoholic. In short, Guigal Cote Rotie, Brune and Blonde was extraordinary. It was a real treat. So I would just encourage you, if you get a chance to either try this wine or Ruth's Chris in Salt Lake City, go for it. It was a blast for both of us. And I would just leave it at that and wish you cheers and amen.